Hello, John.
Hello.
Today we're going to talk about the economy. We're going to talk about quite a lot of things. And I just want to ask you, Ireland, the economy went bust some years back. We had an over-dependency on the building sector. Do you think now, with the high-tech sector and all the American companies that are in Ireland, that we're making the same mistake, that we're relying on too much maybe on the high-tech sector as we were in the past on the building trade?
Correct. The reliance on major employers, particularly employers that are global players and that have located in this country primarily for tax reasons, but also because we have an educated workforce capable of being gainfully employed in these global players, these global information technology companies. Now these companies mostly American, they can without any problem whatsoever relocate to some other jurisdictions, and there are at present pressure on them from a couple of fronts. From the USA to give employment in that country more than they have done. From the EU on the tax, the lack of tax, corporation tax that they are paying. So, and likewise pressure from our next door neighbour Britain particularly. So these are the factors that can undermine in some ways this reliance on the information technology companies that are providing a lot of employment in this country for Irish people, but I believe for people from overseas, because there is no breakdown of the amount of employees that I'm aware of in these companies.
Reports suggest that the Irish economy is improving. Would you agree with that?
Well, according to the statistics, exports increased this year by 3% over the previous year so far, totaling €9.24 billion, representing a 3% increase rather than a decrease. Now, of course, that's the overall figure. So whether most of those, and I've no doubt most of them, are these multinational information technology companies that are exporting their products to their offshoots in other countries and being treated as exports by our Central Statistics Office, which reports these facts. Now, so of the exports, how much were homegrown indigenous Irish companies producing food, added value food to these countries? It seems to me that you mentioned there before the question about the business of the reliance on the property sector and the building sector during the so-called Irish economic tiger economy, or whatever they call it.
The Celtic Tigers.
The Celtic Tiger. Now, it was a very false, illusory period devoted mainly to the building of houses with inflated values and all the rest of it. And anyone with any understanding of economics, and there were a few that cried halt to this nonsensical idea that building property and houses and giving property developers new to the scene vast amounts of money to buy up perfectly successful hotels and pay vast amounts of money so as to build skyscrapers for which there was no demand, as it turned out. You had a collapse the economic downturn and the collapse of house prices, placing many people in negative equity, which sadly is still with us to this day. Now, before I just go any more, the present government, the government that succeeded Fianna Fáil in 2011 to 2016, namely the Fine Gael Labour government, maintained that they had to take steps and put the country on a sound economic footing. Now, it's very difficult to understand the sound economic footing that they're talking about, because they squandered 40 million on some kind of a postal code that many people don't use and find unworkable, that is only particular to this country. So if they did that, how then, where's the economic expertise that they have boasted about? The electorate gave them a sound thrashing in the last election, and now they're reduced to but a replica of their former selves. Fine Gael down to 50, and Labour from whatever it was, 20 or 30, down to 7 TDs, and looking to be there at all. So whether people are voting about the economy or what, it's very difficult to know.
Do you think that jobs and IDA-backed companies are centred maybe too much around certain areas, perhaps cities?
It is quite true that they are centred mainly around Dublin and maybe other city places like Cork and Limerick, or wherever influential ministerial politicians are based. I think sometimes that has an undue influence on where the location of these places are. But it's very fair to say that the rural Ireland is not getting anything, including Meath and Westmeath, not getting anything like the investment that they should be getting from these IDA funded companies.
And of course it actually makes sense that if they were to do this, because it would actually ease the housing problem that we have.
Exactly. Of course it would. The sort of common sense long-term proposals should be adopted by any right-thinking government, mindful of the development of the people in rural Ireland who actually vote for these people. It's time they did something proper for them rather than working strokes and various other items. Stop wasting the people who vote, wasting their votes. Cite food manufacturing companies and other companies given employment in rural Ireland, so as rural Ireland can benefit.
There's been a lot of closure of convenience stores, the convenience stores that have, like, within a busy garage, for example. Is this because of rates, rent? I mean, they appear to be busy. Well, why do you think they're closing?
Just recently, it has been a sad fact for 240 people that went to work last Monday, and by before midday, receivers descended on these garages and convenience stores, from including Navan and that boy in County Meath, which is the Meath West constituency, and likewise Castlebar in County Sligo and various other places. I think the company responsible are based in Sligo. I'm going from my own memory because the reports didn't specify that. These were quite successful companies, and the businesses, by all accounts, were trading very profitably. Now, it hasn't emerged as to who has caused this sudden closure and the loss of jobs without a buyer leave to Irish people employed in those garages. It is a disgrace that such a thing could happen by whoever called in these receivers. It appears to me that people that have try to run businesses in this country are persecuted by red tape, the revenue commissioners, and a whole plethora of state bodies on the business of health and safety and God knows what, rents and rates, etc. The rates are abominable for business in this country, far too high and onerous, without any understanding of the sort of business they are doing and the turnover they're doing and the potential employment, even if it's only 2 or 3 people, whatever it is. It's time that these issues were tackled by this government and previous governments, instead of producing grandiose figures that bear no relation to reality. Deal with the situation as is at the present time and get on with it. Put a bit of life back into the towns and villages.
On a lighter note, you have a lovely photograph there on your desk. Do you want to explain the photograph to us?
This was when I was on vacation in Ireland, in one of the most famous and well-known and lovely lakes in the country, namely Lough Key, near Boyle, County Roscommon. An island with reported to be 32 lakes, one for every county. And also on that lake is a place called Castle Island, where the McDermott clan that ruled that neck of the woods before they were displaced by the foreign settler, the British foreign settlers, namely Sir Cecil King Harman and other people. Now, myself and my wife were on that lake and rowed out to this Castle Island where the famous McDermotts were lived and sited, so as to could protect themselves for people attacking them. Now, on that island we had our...
I just want to ask you, John, did you say you rowed, yourself and your wife rowed?
We did.
On the boat, right? Okay, so what distance are you talking about?
We're talking maybe about, nautical terms, you should be talking about knots, which is 1.25 miles, but in ordinary terms, it would be in the order of perhaps half a mile in our mileage, or kilometres, 500 yards or 500 kilometres, or maybe more. And then we were able to divert and hop out of that boat, tire up, and have a picnic on McDermott's Island and drink a toast to that family that is long since departed.
Thank you very much, John, for coming in today and having a chat with us. That was a lovely story.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.